Hey, I'm Amanda. And let me tell you, what I'm about to share with you isn't something I ever thought I'd be talking about, especially not like this. A few years ago, I thought I had everything figured out: career, family, love. But like so many of us, I learned the hard way that life has a way of flipping the script when you least expect it. I grew up in a small town, nothing fancy. My mom, Linda, worked at a diner, double shifts, day in and day out. My sister, Lily, was younger than me, and let's just say, she wasn't as focused as I was. But we were family, right? And I was determined to make sure that we didn't stay stuck in the same loop that had trapped Mom for years. Now, think about this for a second. Have you ever had someone you loved, someone you trusted completely, and then suddenly realized they weren't who you thought they were? It's like the ground just disappears beneath you. If you've been there, let me know in the comments. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's been blindsided like this. And if you want to know how everything fell apart for me, make sure you subscribe and hit that like button. Trust me, you won't want to miss the next part. It gets wild. When I was a kid, I always thought that if I worked hard enough, I could change everything for us. I kept my head down, studied late into the night, worked part-time at a grocery store, did everything I could to break out of that cycle. My mom, despite being exhausted all the time, always told me that hard work pays off. And eventually, it did. I went to MIT on a full scholarship, and even then, I worked 2 part-time jobs to survive. It wasn't glamorous, but it was all worth it. I sent what little money I had back home, hoping it would make things easier for Mom and Lily. Every sleepless night, every penny I saved, every sacrifice, it was all for them. I just wanted us to have a better life, a life where money wasn't something we had to constantly worry about. After graduation, I landed a job as a junior developer at a tech firm, but I knew I wasn't going to stay there forever. The company wasn't big enough, and I had bigger dreams. I wanted to create something of my own, to build something that would really change things for me, my mom, and Lily. And that's exactly what I did. I started my own company, SecureFlow, specializing in encryption software for financial institutions. It wasn't easy. I put in 18-hour days, maxed out credit cards, and constantly worried about whether I was going to fail. But slowly we made it. Our clients got bigger, our profits increased, and I finally started seeing. And in that moment, I thought everything was falling into place. I had made it. I bought Mom a house. A real house, not a small apartment in a rundown building. I paid off her medical debts, gave her a monthly allowance, enough that she could finally quit working at the diner. She had worked so hard for so long, and I wanted to give her something back. Lily, she was still figuring things out, but I made sure she had everything she needed too, even if it meant bailing her out financially from time to time. But here's the thing no one tells you about success. When you have everything, the people closest to you can sometimes feel like they're losing something. It wasn't just about money for me anymore. I was helping my family, lifting them up. But the truth is, there were times when I started to see things that made me question everything. It was subtle at first. Mom would smile and say she was proud, but I could see something behind her eyes. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it felt like resentment. The more I achieved, the more it seemed like she was shutting me out. She'd shift the conversation to Lily, or she'd talk about her own health problems, things that I didn't know how to fix. But you know what? I pushed those thoughts aside. I told myself this is family, they love me, and for a long time that's what I believed. They had to love me, right? I was their success story. I was the one who made it, the one who was going to make their lives better. But life, as I was about to learn, doesn't always play out like you expect. It doesn't care how hard you've worked, how much you've sacrificed. Because success, as sweet as it is, can come with a side of bitter truth that you never see coming. And the moment I started seeing things that didn't add up, that's when everything started slipping out of my hands. It started with small things, you know? A missed phone call here, a change in tone there. I tried to push it away, tell myself I was imagining things. But there were times when I'd catch Mom looking at me with that same smile she always wore, but I could see it now. It didn't reach her eyes. I could see the resentment lurking, hiding behind the corners of her smile. It wasn't even about the money anymore, not really. It was about something deeper, something I couldn't put my finger on. The more I gave, the more I lifted them up, the more distant they became. I was trying to share my success, to show them that we could finally have the life we all deserved. But instead, it felt like they were pulling away. And I didn't know why. I thought, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm too focused. Maybe I'm overthinking. But deep down, I knew something was off. I started spending more time with Lily, trying to make sure she felt like she mattered too, because she was struggling and I didn't want her to feel left behind. She had always been a little, well, lost. But still, she was my sister. And I wanted her to be happy, to be better. I even set her up with a career coach, bought her some nice clothes for interviews, things like that. I wanted her to see that she could change too, that we all could. But when I shared my victories with her, she'd listen, sure, but then always steer the conversation back to herself. Her struggles, her dreams, her mistakes. I never judged her, but there were times when I felt like I was giving everything to help them both while feeling like I was getting nothing in return. And then I began to wonder, was this all worth it? It wasn't about the money anymore. It was the love, the trust, the feeling of family. I thought I was helping them, but with every act of kindness, it seemed like I was building a wall between us. And that wall kept getting higher, and I didn't know how to break it down. I had worked my ass off for so long to get to this place. I had dreamed of the day when I could give them everything I never had: security, comfort, peace of mind. I thought, this is it. This is the moment we all change. This is the payoff. And maybe that was true for me. But for them, I started to wonder if the gap between us had become too wide to cross. But then came that day. The day it all came crashing down in a way I couldn't have even imagined. It was a Thursday morning, early. I had been at the bank for over an hour, going through all the paperwork for a big transaction. It was the kind of deal that would seal the success of my company for good. Secure Flow was officially entering the big leagues. Everything was lining up perfectly. The sale was going to bring in tens of millions, and I was planning on using some of that to buy my dream home. The one I had been eyeing for months. I could already picture it. Glass walls, infinity pool, a real office with a view. My dream house right there in front of me. I pulled up to Mom's house, the same place where I'd stored the money the night before, tucked away safely in her vault. No bank could offer the same level of security. I trusted her. I had to trust her. When I stepped inside, everything seemed normal. It was the kind of morning where the house smelled like coffee and pancakes, Mom humming softly in the kitchen as she prepared breakfast. Lily was sitting at the table, scrolling on her phone, the usual disinterested expression on her face. But something felt off. A shift in the air, like the world was holding its breath. I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was just me, stressed from the deal, the pressure. I checked the safe, made sure everything was in place. The bags were heavy with cash, the kind of money I'd never thought I'd see in my life. As I sat down for breakfast, I tried to brush off the weirdness, but I couldn't. It wasn't just the money that was making me uneasy. There was something in Mom's voice when she asked, "Are you sure everything's okay with the deal? I mean, that much money, it just seems." Her words trailed off, and I caught the hesitation. The doubt, the words she never used before. I should have known something was wrong, but I ignored it. I wasn't ready to face it yet. I should have seen the signs. Instead, I smiled and reassured her. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't even fathom, was that everything I thought I knew about my family, about my trust, about the life I had worked so hard to build, was about to be ripped apart. The silence in the house was suffocating. After everything I had done, after everything I had given them, how could they betray me like this? How could they take everything I worked so hard for, my dream, my family, my future, and just vanish? Gone, it felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. I stood there, staring at the note, still in my shaking hands. The words blurred as the tears started to blur my vision. "Thanks for your money, Amanda. Now we can live our dream life. Don't try to find us." It wasn't just the money, it was everything. All the years of sacrifice, all the sleepless nights, every penny I had sent home, every moment I had worked myself to the bone, gone. And for what? For them to leave me like this? To take everything and vanish without a trace? I felt my knees give way as the full weight of it hit me. This wasn't just a financial loss, it was a loss of trust, of family, of love. I thought they were my rock. I thought I had done everything for them, but in the end, they didn't see me as family. They saw an opportunity, and they took it. I stumbled back, my mind racing, trying to process what had just happened. My heart was pounding in my chest. I couldn't breathe. I grabbed my phone and dialed Jason's number. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely press the numbers. When he picked up, I could barely get the words out. "They're gone," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Mom, Lily, they took everything. The money, Jason, it's all gone. They disappeared." Jason's voice came through, trying to calm me. "What do you mean? What happened, Mackenzie?" "They took it," I choked out. "They took the $10 million, Jason. The money, it's all gone. They're gone." I didn't have to say anything else. Jason knew what I meant. He was there in a flash. I could hear the panic in his footsteps, even though he was trying to keep it together. He didn't need to ask me questions. He just knew. When he got there, he knelt beside me, his hand on mine, steadying me in the chaos. "We need to call the police," he said, his voice urgent but calm. "We need to figure out what happened." But I didn't know how to even begin. How could I explain to the police that the people I trusted most had stolen from me? How could I explain that my own family, the ones I had given everything for, had planned this betrayal behind my back? I felt like I had no answers. Only questions. The hours that followed felt like a blur. The police came, Detective Martinez leading the investigation, but the more I tried to explain, the worse it sounded. "You willingly placed $10 million in cash in your mother's safe," she asked, her voice steady, but I could hear the judgment behind her words. It was like she was telling me that I had made a mistake by trusting them. The guilt hit me like a ton of bricks. Had I been too trusting? Had I been too naive to see this coming? I could feel the walls closing in as the detective asked me if I had noticed any signs before. Any indication that they might have been planning this? The truth was, I hadn't seen it. I couldn't see it. I had been too caught up in doing the right thing, helping my family, lifting them up, giving them a better life. But what had I gotten in return? Betrayal. And now, everything I had worked for, everything I had sacrificed for, was in pieces. Days passed, but nothing changed. The investigation was slow. I was consumed with the questions that wouldn't leave my mind. Where were they? Why did they do this? What had happened to the people I thought I knew? It felt like I was drowning in this nightmare. I couldn't escape it. No matter what I did, the betrayal followed me. But then, a few days later, Detective Martinez called me. I could hear the weight in her voice as she explained the details of the investigation. They had found signs of fraud, of planning. They were using fake identities, disappearing into countries where extradition wasn't possible. My own mother, the woman who had raised me, the woman who had been my rock, had been using me for her own gain. For months, they had planned this. And that's when it hit me, this wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was deliberate. They had seen me as a means to an end. They had been waiting for the right moment to strike, and they had struck at the heart of everything I had worked for. And I didn't see it coming. I had been blind to their lies. The detective's words hit me hard. But then, she said something that would change everything. She told me they had been following my family's movements. They were watching, planning. They knew exactly what they were doing. And now, I was the one left to pick up the pieces. The next few days felt like I was walking through a fog. My mind, my body, everything in me felt disconnected from the world. I kept replaying the events in my head over and over again, like a broken record. Every time I thought I had moved past the worst of it, it would hit me again. They took it. My own family had stolen from me, and I couldn't escape the sting of that truth. I remember sitting in the same chair where I had collapsed that first day. The silence was deafening. Jason was there, but I could tell he was losing patience, his concern turning into frustration. I couldn't blame him. How could I explain this kind of betrayal to anyone who had never experienced it themselves? How could I make him understand the complete and utter devastation that comes with trusting someone completely, and having that trust shattered by the very people who should have protected you? Jason had been my rock, my one constant. But even now, as he stood next to me, trying to pull me out of the depths of this nightmare, I felt a part of me slipping away. I was numb. The woman I had been, the woman who had worked so hard to get here, to help my family, to build something, she was gone. What was left was just a hollow shell, consumed by questions that had no answers. And then came the call. Detective Martinez's voice came through, calm and matter-of-fact, but there was an edge to her words. Something had changed. Something new had come to light. My heart skipped a beat as she told me that they had tracked down Mom and Lily's movements. They had found their plane tickets, their locations. They were slipping through the cracks, disappearing without a trace. And that's when it hit me. They were far ahead of me. They had been planning this for months. They had studied me, studied my life. They had planned their escape with precision, but I wasn't going to let them get away with it. No, not this time. Not when everything I had worked for, everything I had sacrificed for, was slipping out of my grasp. This was no longer just about the money. This was about me, about taking back what was mine. I could feel my pulse quickening, the anger bubbling up inside me. The betrayal, the lies, they were pushing me to the edge, but I wasn't going to fall. I wasn't going to let them win. They thought they had taken everything from me, but they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated me. They had underestimated what I would do to protect myself, to protect what I had worked so hard to build. "Get ready," I told Jason, my voice steady now, but laced with an intensity I hadn't felt in days. "We're going after them." Jason looked at me, his brow furrowed. "Mackenzie, we can't just—" "No," I cut him off, my voice sharp. "They're not getting away with this. I've worked too hard, Jason. I'm done being the victim. It's time to take control." We moved quickly. There was no time to waste. My mind raced as I made calls, arranged meetings, gathered the people I needed. I wasn't going to let them vanish into the wind. I wasn't going to let them think they could steal everything I had worked for, everything I had built, and get away with it. For the first time in days, I felt alive again. The anger, the determination, it was all pouring out of me. I wasn't just going to find them, I was going to confront them. I was going to make them face the consequences of their actions. I didn't know what it would take to get the money back, to bring them to justice, but I was ready. I was ready to fight for everything that had been taken from me. I had no idea how this would all play out, but I knew one thing for sure: this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. I wasn't going to sit around any longer, letting this whole thing happen to me. I was done. Done feeling like I was powerless. Done with the self-pity. The moment I decided I was going to confront them, a weight lifted from my chest. For the first time in days, I could feel my heart beating again. Not from fear, but from pure adrenaline. The kind of adrenaline that pushes you to do things you never thought you could. As I gathered everything together, the evidence, the information, the people I could trust, it hit me. I wasn't just fighting for money. This was about something bigger. It was about respect, self-worth, and trust, things I had given away so easily because I believed in family, in love. I stared at the map in front of me, my fingers tracing the lines of where they'd gone, where they'd been hiding. They were slipping through countries, leaving no trace, but there was one thing they hadn't counted on: their movements were being tracked. And now they were walking straight into a trap of their own making. Jason was still by my side, his concern for me turning into something deeper. Maybe he saw the fire in my eyes. Maybe he saw the woman I used to be, the one who wasn't afraid to take charge, to lead, to fight. It wasn't just about getting the money back anymore. This was about reclaiming everything I had lost, reclaiming my power. "We've got one shot at this," I said, voice firm, though there was still a tremor of anger running through me. "They think they've gotten away with it. They think they've outsmarted me, but we know where they are, we know what they're doing. And we're not backing down." Jason nodded, no more words needed. He had seen me at my lowest, but now he saw me coming back from the edge. He saw the woman who had built an empire out of nothing, who had worked herself to the bone for her family. He knew I wasn't going to lose this battle. With everything in place, we flew to Milan. The sun was setting as we landed, the warm golden light casting long shadows on the ground. It felt like the universe had aligned for this moment, the moment when everything I had been fighting for would come to a head. The plan was set, and now it was time to execute. I had my team, I had the evidence, and I had one last thing they hadn't prepared for: me. Mackenzie Walker, the woman they thought they knew, the woman they thought— I spotted them immediately. My mom, sitting across from Lily, both of them wrapped in designer clothes, sipping champagne like they had no care in the world. There they were, enjoying the fruits of their betrayal, completely unaware that I was standing right behind them. The shock on their faces when they saw me, oh, it was worth every second of this journey. The betrayal I had felt, the weight of their lies, all came rushing back in that moment. But there was no time for tears, no time for weakness. This wasn't about guilt. This wasn't about understanding. This was about justice. I sat down, my eyes never leaving theirs. The fear in their eyes only fueled me more. I couldn't help but smile a little. They thought they had won. But I was just getting started. and I wasn't going to stop until they knew exactly what they had stolen. Not just money, but trust, respect, and the very foundation of our family. "Nice dress," I said, breaking the silence as I stared at my mother, trying to keep my voice steady. "But do you know what's funny? This $10 million you're living off of, it's fake." The look on their faces was priceless. They didn't even know how to respond. They had no idea what was coming next. "Everything you've been spending, all the luxury, all the freedom you thought you had, it's all built on lies," I continued, my voice gaining strength with each word. "You didn't just steal from me, you stole from everything I've worked for." It took them a moment, but the realization hit. They had been playing with fire, and now it was burning them. "Do you really think you're going to get away with this?" I asked, my voice cold, cutting through the tension like a knife. Rebecca reached for her bag, her fingers trembling as she looked for the money she had been flaunting. She knew what I was talking about now. She had no idea where to hide. "And don't even think about denying it," I added, leaning in, "because I have everything. Your tracking, your movements, your accounts. I know where you've been, where you're going. It's all been a game to you, but now the game's over." The realization settled in. They were caught, and they knew it. The room seemed to close in on me as my mother and sister just stared, utterly frozen, processing what was happening. The shock in their eyes was more satisfying than I could have imagined. The weight of their betrayal had been so heavy, I thought it would crush me. But now, watching their faces crumble, I felt a strange sense of power surge through me. For so long, I had wondered how it could all come to this. How could the people I loved, the people I trusted more than anyone, do something like this? I wasn't sure I'd ever understand the reasoning behind their actions. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about everything else they had stolen, everything they had taken from me. And now, in this moment, with them staring back at me, I finally had the answers I had been searching for. They hadn't just betrayed me for money. They had betrayed me for something much darker: greed, jealousy, and their own insecurities. "I think you owe me an explanation," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, but I could feel the steel in my words. The tension was palpable, thick in the air. They didn't dare speak, and in that silence I saw it: guilt. They were guilty, and they knew it. Rebecca, the one who had always lived in my shadow, was the first to break the silence. "You think you're so much better than us," she spat, her words laced with venom. "You think just because you made it out, you can look down on us. Mom worked so hard for you. She gave up everything for you. And you just discarded us." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like everything that had been building between us, the love, the sacrifices, the moments we had shared, was suddenly wiped away in one breath, as if everything I'd done to help them was nothing. "Discarded you? You think I've discarded you? After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me." The words left my mouth before I could stop them, the anger rising again. But this time, I wasn't afraid of it. I was ready to let it all out. Mom, too, finally found her voice, but it was weak, tremulous, as though she realized that she couldn't manipulate me anymore. "Mackenzie," she started, her voice shaking. "You have everything. What else do you want from us? You have money, you have success. What more could you possibly need?" What more could I need? The question hung in the air like smoke. What more could I need? I had everything: success, the career, the life that I had built from the ground up. But what did I need now? I needed justice. I needed closure. I needed them to see me for who I really was, not just a success story they could ride on, but someone who deserved respect, love, and trust. I leaned forward, my gaze never leaving theirs. "What I need, Mom, what I need is for you to own up to what you did. You stole from me, and I'm not letting you get away with it. Not now, not ever." The silence that followed felt suffocating. For a brief moment, I thought I saw a flicker of remorse in my mom's eyes, but it was gone just as quickly as it appeared. She wasn't sorry. Not really. And that's what hurt the most. But I couldn't waste my time on guilt. Not anymore. The damage was done. The betrayal was final. I stood up slowly, the weight of the moment heavy in the pit of my stomach. But there was no turning back now. "The truth is, you've been living in a fantasy world. You thought you could get away with this, but you underestimated me." I turned to Jason, who had been silently standing behind me, watching it all unfold. His eyes met mine, full of concern but also pride. This was the moment he had been waiting for, just as much as I had. This was the moment when I took back control. "You're not alone in this, Mackenzie," he said softly, his voice steady. "I've got your back, we've got this." That simple reassurance from him gave me the strength I needed. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was standing tall again. I wasn't just fighting for the money, for the dream house, for the life I had built. I was fighting for myself. We had them cornered. The game was finally over. But I wasn't about to let them walk away scot-free. The silence that filled the restaurant was suffocating, thick with the weight of everything that had just been laid bare. My mother and sister sat there, stunned, still trying to process what had just happened. The shock on their faces was almost unbearable, because in that moment, I realized they had no idea what was coming next. They thought they had won. They thought they could just take from me and walk away. But they had no idea that I was just getting started. I felt a fire in my chest, a surge of energy that I hadn't felt in so long. The anger, the hurt, it wasn't the dominant emotion anymore. Now, it was about something different. Control. I was in control of this situation. I wasn't the victim anymore. I glanced at Jason. He had been quiet through all of this, watching, supporting me in ways I didn't even realize I needed. His eyes were full of pride, but also something else, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I knew he understood that this wasn't just about the money. It was about standing up for myself, about showing my family that I wasn't just some tool they could use when it was convenient. "Mom, Rebecca," I said, my voice steady but laced with an emotion I couldn't quite name. "You both underestimated me. You thought that I would just let this slide, that I would fall apart. Well, here's the thing, I've been through worse. And I'm still standing. You've destroyed everything. Our family, the trust, the love, but this isn't just about revenge. This is about justice." I paused, taking a deep breath. I wasn't sure if they were listening, or if they even cared, but I needed them to hear me. I needed them to understand exactly what they had done. The magnitude of their betrayal wasn't just about the money they had stolen. It was about the years of lies, manipulation, and subtle resentment. They thought they had control over me, over my success, but I was done being their puppet. I leaned in closer to them, making sure they knew how serious I was. "You think you've taken everything from me, but I still have my integrity. I still have my dignity. And now, I'm going to make sure you face the consequences of your actions." They exchanged a look, a silent conversation that I couldn't hear but could feel. And that's when it hit me, they were just as trapped as I had been. All these years, they had been lying to themselves, justifying their actions because they thought they deserved more. They thought they deserved the life I had worked so hard to build. But the truth was, they never truly understood what it meant to fight for something. Rebecca's voice cut through the tension. "You're so full of yourself. You really think you're better than us, don't you?" The words stung, but I didn't flinch. "No, Rebecca, I don't think I'm better. I just think I'm stronger. And you've shown me exactly how far you'll go to bring me down, how far you'll go to destroy what I've built. But here's the thing, I'm not letting you, not anymore." Rebecca's eyes narrowed, the coldness in them unmistakable. "You can't keep doing this. You can't keep thinking you can control everything. You're not invincible." Invincible. That word lingered in my mind. No, I wasn't invincible. I had been knocked down before, more times than I cared to admit, but I had always gotten back up. I had learned that strength didn't come from never falling, it came from getting back up, from moving forward despite the pain. "I'm not invincible," I said, my voice softer now. "But I am stronger than you think, and I'm not afraid of what's coming next." At that moment, it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about my house, my career, or anything material. It was about reclaiming my story. I wasn't going to let them dictate how my life was going to play out. No, I was going to take control. And they were going to face the consequences of what they had done, whether they liked it or not. The next few moments were a blur. I could see them processing, realizing that the game had changed. Their plan, the one they had so carefully executed, was unraveling before their eyes. They couldn't hide anymore. They couldn't run. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to come. This wasn't over. No, it wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. So, what would you do if you were in my shoes? Would you